you ever wondered, can you communicate directly with spirit guides, teachers, or non-physical consciousness, or even our higher selves? What would they tell us? My name is Kevin Moore, and since 2015, I started to practice a form of communication which is termed channeling. I have been interviewing experts on my talk show to find out, does life continue after we die, and can we communicate with those that have crossed over? With each expert I spoke to, they all had different ideas. Is there knowledge from the past which could be shared with the present moment? So I thought, why not just speak to the non-physical world directly through channelers around the world? And that's what I set out to do. They Call Us Channelers will take the viewers on a journey into the phenomena known as channeling. And my main goal with this docuseries is to bring a new understanding and awareness to channeling by looking within ourselves and asking, is it truly possible that we can all use this innate ability? Well, Ginger Metraux, thank you so much for letting me do this interview in your home. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
There's something about filming these in a on-site location sometimes. It's just, you know, being in the home, being in where someone feels very, it's their personal space. They, you know, they're comfortable. They, you know, the energy's different a little bit. Just a little bit too.
Well, we're all relaxed and laid back. We've had dinner.
Yes, yes, yeah. Thank you very much, by the way. Yeah. So it's a pleasure to get you on. I came across you from another channeling documentary, and I thought, you know what, I really would love to interview you. So the universe has brought us together and allowed this to happen. There are no chances, are there? Everything's kind of worked out sometimes, isn't it, for us?
Well, I think there's a magical flow that when we're attuned to our real purpose or our direction and to our heart, it just happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so
it just
true.
Unfolds in magical ways. It's so wonderful.
It is. It's beautiful. And we were talking about some of those stories just over dinner as well. Just these synchronicities. And it's for me, the synchronicities, that's been the key to that. I just know there is something beyond this. Regardless of what I would channel or others would channel, you know, I just with those synchronicities, when they line up, it's like, yes, that's the universe saying, hey.
Yeah, and for me, I didn't trust when I was first channeling whether it was authentic or not. But then Galexis, the group I channel, would say things that the person would go, yeah, that's fantastic. And I had no clue. It was absolutely out of left field. And I was like, oh, I could not have thought of that myself.
You didn't trust it, right?
Oh, and it's also, when Galexis first came through, they had no accent. And so I didn't trust that it was not me. And so Galexis laughed one time and said, well, we're going to make sure that you know it's not you, just you, because we know you cannot do accents. I cannot make up an accent, right? So we're going to do an accent. So they have this kind of hokey, pseudo-British kind of accent. It's really funny. And then I realized, I can't do that myself.
No.
So they had to do it to kind of convince me, because it took a bit of convincing for me to get
I was the same as you. Do you know that? I channeled this group, and I've really had to grit my teeth sometimes. You know, am I really doing this? Is it me wanting to do it for whatever reasons? And then something comes through, and you're like, well, I never thought of it that way.
That's right.
Yeah.
And some of the most amazing new information comes through, and I go, wow, am I lucky to be sitting here listening to this? You know?
That is so true. And when you do channel, are you kind of Would you say you're a conscious channel?
I'm fairly conscious. However, I'm in a state that would be much more like a dream state, or I'm in my subconscious mind. I'm not fully in the conscious. Galexis takes most of that. What I feel I'm doing is it feels to me like I'm sitting backwards and kind of back and up a bit, where I have this kind of perspective. It's like I'm at the beach and I'm lying on a lounge chair, and there's a conversation between two people next to me on lounge chairs, and I'm just listening in. It has this kind of detached experience, but I'm hearing it all. Now, the thing is if I don't think about it after the session is over and I go to sleep that night, the next day there's nothing left. So I have to deliberately say, wow, that's fantastic information, that's really, and think about it and so on, and then it remains with me. And then Galexis now will embellish it and will give me more detail later on my own as I write it up. Then I start channeling as I write. And so right now I've been doing these newsletters of sharing this amazing information that's been coming through. And stuff, sometimes whole new information shows up as I'm writing along, and I'm like, okay, Galexis, you want me to include that, I gather? And they would, yeah.
That's incredible, isn't it? So you channel, what do they call that? It's called creative writing, isn't it? Is that the process?
Well, it's channeled writing.
Channeled writing,
yeah. And, well, I've been doing this a while. I started in 1988, okay, and I've been channeling ever since then. Or actually in 1988, I started channeling before, but it was in that year that Galexis first came through.
What was special about that year?
I don't know that there was anything special about that year, except Galexis came in.
Was there anything going on in your life that you can look back and say, that may have opened some part of me up, or?
Well, I still had reluctance to channel up until that year. And my reluctance was that I didn't like appointments. I was so overly booked with my astrology practice and I also did hypnosis and coaching and that kind of stuff. And so I was taking people through clearing out their parents' stuff and them with all their issues and all their emotional healing. And this was, it was kind of draining. And so I was like, no, I want this time for me. No, I'm not going to do, go close my eyes and get passive, but I was starting to get really fatigued and I was really tired. And so actually, in a way, it became a kind of a nice, rest, because I could just like this, and then everything would happen, and then I just open my eyes again, and everything, And at the beginning, I patterned my channeling on two things. One, on Abraham, because in the early channelings, Daniel would play Jerry's role, and I would play Esther's role, and we would have that same kind of, he would ask the questions, and I would channel. And then also, we had a private channeling with a really fabulous channel named Matar. I don't know if you've heard of Matar. You're going to have to interview Matar, M-A-T-A-A-R-E. So, and he brought through, he had a special group of guides that would show through. And he would channel one, then he'd go back like this, and then he'd go up, he would be again, and there would be the next, entity, and so on. And he could do about 4 in a row. And this was tiring for him. And so one session I was there in July of '88, and one of the guides that came through said, there's someone here who wants to channel through you. I said, through me? As the channel? Because I'd been practicing it, but I hadn't really, okay. And they said, yes, they want to channel through you. I said, okay. Because I'd been channeling and I'd been practicing. Now, it didn't come to me like that. It was something that required work. Daniel and I both worked at it. And so I was channeling, and so I'd bring through the Matar's friends. and a little bit, and not much, but a little bit. And then I would do the same thing. I'd go back, I like this, and then I'd come back and do that. And it was a little tiring. And so within a month later, I was channeling, and a new voice came through I had never heard before. And they said, we are your friends. We're going to work together as a group because we can see that you don't have the energy to channel one of us and then go down and have to go through the translation again and back and forth 2 or 3, 4 times. We don't see that you have that energy. So we've decided that we're all going to get together and we're going to merge into one. And what we're going to do essentially is that we're going to kind of pass the microphone around to the individuals. And that way you only have to go into trance once and come out of trance once. And wow, well that sounds good because then I'm not exhausted. And so then I kind of responded from my conscious mind, which I didn't normally do, but I was like, yeah, and I do have another requirement. Is like, when you come through, I'd really appreciate it if you could do some healing on me so I could have some energy. And so they agreed to that. So every time they come in, I gain energy. And they basically brought me out of the chronic fatigue. And it's still I can be like, and go meditate and fall asleep in my meditation. Then I go channel and whoop, my energy's back and my metabolism is different, my health is different, my body's different.
And how do you use discernment with what you channel as well?
How what?
How do you use any discernment with what's coming through as well? Or do you not really?
It was practice. Because in the early days I realized that I couldn't channel worth a darn if I was trying really hard to impress somebody, i.e. the ego would interfere. Also, if I felt I had an agenda and I was going to channel for somebody and there was something I wanted them to know and I wanted to have some authority with it, so I'm going to let Galexis do it, that didn't work either. And actually, when they first came through, they had no name. And so Daniel said, well, what do I call you? And they said, well, whatever. And Daniel said, I'm going to call you the voice. And so for the first 2 years, it was the voice, right? And after a while, the voice said, we feel like we want feel more connection with those that we talk to. Therefore, we'd like a name. So Daniel and I put together a Name That Entity contest. We might as well have some fun with this, right? And we had people submit names, and the best one was going to get a free reading. However, before the best one happened and before we figured out which one we liked, one day I was walking, doing laundry or something, and Galexis came in, and I knew that was what they wanted us to call them.
Oh, that's how it happened for me as well.
Yeah?
Yeah, the name just came. And I thought that name has just come from my mental part of my mind.
Right. No, you have to trust what you get, You have to learn how to say, okay, I'm hearing it, I'm going to trust it, I'm going to go with it. And that just builds your intuition so fast.
Yes, it does. It really does. And if I hadn't have chose that name, then certain people wouldn't have come across my path.
There you go.
And
right.
they were keys for me to say, yes, this is real, because they're channeling the same entity as me, for example. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh my God, I didn't know anyone else was channeling the same entity as me. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Well, some of these entities sleep around,
They do indeed. Oh, yeah, they do. Or it's almost like it's like a different aspect of it as well.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Everybody does flavor it a little bit. It's your energy does determine kind of what aspect comes through.
How much percentage-wise are you out of the way when you channel?
That would be kind of hard to guess. I'm conscious, but I can't really intervene or say anything. It's like my communication is closed off.
But if
but I'm kind of in the side, just detached, listening. But I'm awake. I'm hearing everything.
Sure, but do you think that you can't have information that's outside of your perspective come through? So, for example,
Well, I've tried that and it doesn't work. I have to really let go.
so you think we are able to bring? Well, I suppose then maybe you're able to bring in new information only when we're ready to hear that. Only when you're ready to hear that, maybe. You know, if it's not for your
Well,
highest
that's
calling.
true because
Yeah.
sometimes I have a personal issue that I'm trying to cope with and so on. And then I'll have a string of readings and channelings in which the people asking Galexis are asking my questions. You know, it's like, okay, thank you, because it's hard sometimes for me to get the answers directly. So Galexis does that. There's like, okay, well this week we'll all get people who have this similar issue, and oh, okay, and I get all these insights, and boom, I'm on to the next level of that. You know, I'm unfolding it. So it's a real advantage, of course. I feel totally fortunate.
Yes, absolutely. And just going back to 1988, how different the scene would have been for this subject as well back then. Even though at that time it would have still seemed cutting edge where we were with channeling at that time. But now look where we're at with channeling. Has it changed much? Do you think from 88?
You
to
mean
now?
the perception of channeling
Perception.
as a occupation or as a thing to do?
Yes, and just probably the amount of newer channelers that have come on the scene now.
Well, I think in a sense that the energy's kind of diluted and dispersed because of all that has happened and so on. But when I first was doing it, I decided I needed to practice, and so I offered free channeling evenings where people could come and ask questions, and it was free in our living room. And to my amazement, people were so curious. We would have absolutely, floor to ceiling almost people, and so we had to then take reservations from people, even though it was free, because we'd have to turn people away. I was like, people were really interested. But if I had done that 10 years later, I suspect we wouldn't have gotten anywhere near the interest, just because channeling had become, by that time, so much more usual, so much more normal or ordinary for people who were in a spiritual path.
Yeah. Is there any sort of channels that really resonate with you, even nowadays still?
Well, I totally really enjoy the channeled entity Lazarus. I've found Lazarus to be absolutely high integrity information, and it's absolutely useful for my life and uplifting and everything. Of course, I've enjoyed quite a few different channels. I've read, there's Cryon and Abraham and there's others, some of the more famous ones. And I like reading more than like watching videos. So generally, they have to have books for me to get into them.
I think when I've done this journey, I can see that when we progress, the entities that we channel progress, and when they progress, we progress.
Exactly,
it's a
exactly.
Two-way synergy.
We're growing together.
Yeah.
In fact, they learn a lot by working with us. We think that they've already got it all together, but for them, it's kind of hard to deal with physical plane stuff when they're not there. And so they rely on us to be the conduit between what's going on physical Earth and themselves. And so, it's really curious because a lot of times I've talked with people just starting out and channeling, and the guides can just absolutely mess them up. Keep them up at all hours of the night and do all sorts of stuff, and they can't eat or whatever it is, and it's like. But, on the other side, they don't sleep, they don't eat, they don't, so they're not aware of the parameters. And so it's up to the channel not to let themselves get run into the ground about that, but to really, truly be in a creative endeavor with them, really participating as partners And then you both learn much faster. You know, back when I was much younger, I went to Camp Chesterfield in Indiana, and this is a spiritualist camp where their mediums would live there, and they have houses there, and they're all around a circle. And in the summertime, that's their summer location. And so I and my first husband went there, and we would walk around and we would listen to messages. They'd be sitting on the front porch giving messages, and they were all obese and in pain and with edema, and they looked like death warmed over. I was like, what? You know, it's like their relationship with the entities that came through, with their guides, was that whatever their guides said, they would do. No saying, wait a minute, I'm physical. Could you make some adjustments, please? Let's work together. It wasn't together. It was basically, I surrender and I am nothing and you do it all. And I realized I can't do that. That's not my path, is to be unconscious. You know?
No, absolutely not. I mean, well, that kind of makes me think, well, what are they bringing through?
Well, what they were bringing through, you know, spiritualism, the whole culture of spiritualism is about speaking with the dead, okay? And the whole purpose of spiritualism was to convince people that there's life after death. So basically, they would channel things through, bring things through, like, I remember the first time I went to a spiritualist church, it was my first date with my first husband, and one of the mediums, there were like 3 mediums, and one of the mediums would say to somebody, so-and-so's name, and the person say, over here, and they'd say, did you plant some flowers recently? And they say, yes. And they say, well, this is your Aunt Sarah, and we suggest that you should not plant those flowers there. They should be planted on the other side of the driveway. You know, I was like, okay, that's cute. but what does it have to do with anything that is of significance? So that's partly why I didn't go the spiritualist route.
Yeah, because, you know, well...
Yeah, you know, those people needed that confirmation.
Yeah, they did. That's the level that they were at, basically. Mm-hmm. But I almost want to, you know, I'm still in, you know, if Auntie Ethel, you know, wasn't the best person for relationship advice on this level, mm-hmm. why would Auntie Ethel, when she's crossed over, be the one to speak to for relationship advice just because she's aware of everything when she's crossed over?
Well, actually, when you get a higher perspective, then all of a sudden you see how the dots connect, whereas you don't sometimes when you're in it, you know. So there is a tremendous grand awakening when a person goes to the other level. And if that person chooses to be a guide or support of people left behind, or choose to be the ancestors and the guidance of the ancestors and so on, if a person chooses that particular function, then they are basically, in a sense, endowed with a higher perspective than the person that is left back in the physical plane. Not that it's a perfect place, not that it's the best place, but it's higher than that person, and it can lift them. That's the idea, kind of lift them, and not to interfere with their lives, but to lift them so that they can make better decisions, you know?
You know, I came across a channeler recently on my journey who said, and he didn't really want to come on to talk about this, he said, but, you know, this is what happened. And his channel says that 99.9% of all channelers aren't channeling what they think they're channeling. Mm-hmm. That maybe what's coming through is loving information, but is it practical enough to help people? And also, does it want to go beyond a level that it's giving the information out so that we can go further? Is it kind of blocking us?
Well, if that intention, as you mentioned, of helping a person practically deal with their lives and taking them further, if that intention is not there, then I don't see much point of going to a channel.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I'm about here.
Yes.
You know, is that I want it practical, because because I was an astrologer for many years, and one of the things that I thought was fascinating about getting into astrology was that I have no planets in Earth signs. Tend to be totally ungrounded. Very good for floating around in the universe, right? But I needed somehow or another to keep grounding myself. I needed something practical. And so anytime I got spiritual information, I insisted that I had to figure out how to apply it. And so I gave that parameter to Galexis as well. So Galexis makes sure that every person they talk to, that they give something practical and applied that they can do about it. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the gift.
Yes. Yes. Well, you may be one of the 0.1% that he's on about that are good.
Well, I would like that, depending on whether I believe him or not.
Yeah, well, that's exactly, that is his truth and his entity's truth, or what the connection of source that he's bringing through. It's their truth, and that's fine. That's fine. There's so many different channels out there in a sense, and I think you will be drawn to the one that's right for you.
Yes, if I'm looking for a channeler, I will find one. Very often, I have found that in the past, I've been rather stubborn and resistant to take any action towards anything, and so I found that the way the universe did it was that they would give me 3 hints. By the time the 3rd hint came up, okay, all right, okay, I'll do it. So that's quite, a requirement for the universe to create 3 magical synchronicities so that I would get my booty up off the sofa and go do something, But they do.
They do.
And they do it lovingly, and they really, even problematic crises, issues, negative seeming things can be really very positive in the long run, because it makes you step into becoming more real, becoming more of who you are, looking beyond your usual box,
Yeah, in any pain there's growth, isn't there?
Yeah. And the challenge really is to learn how to grow through joy, because most of us have been trained to problem solve. And you always focus on the issue and get this issue and da 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 da. And that's really not very fun. So one of the things that Galexis has emphasized is that you want it to be fun. You want to have a beautiful, glorious future to look forward to, something to anticipate with excitement, enthusiasm, and so on. So basically, instead of trying to solve all your problems, you need to create a future. And so over the past 2 or 3 years, Galexis has been really working a lot with me on that. But this year, initiating a tremendous new level of awakening and a new world really coming into being, that the need to dream the future is more important than ever. And so I'm putting together what I call the Dream Future Project. And I'm going to invite people to come and be with me and join with me, and let's explore how we really want the future to be. And in the process, I went and did a meditation and went and visited the future. And it was so wild, so much fun. And so I came back and I've written it all up, and I'm going to be sending that out too. But one of the things I discovered in the future is that these are all, that the energies of that future, and this is kind of the optimal future, or let's put it this way, the ideal future. I want to go to the best future, right? If we're going to anchor to a future, let's anchor to that one, right? And in that future, people are in community, there's love, there's peace, you feel safe, there's harmony, there's just not conflict. There's a flow. The air is clean. The water is pure. There's a kind of a fresh, joyous quality about it nature is revived, and people are at peace and oneness with each other. There's this whole, and I know that sounds like a totally woo-woo fantasy way up there, but you know, we had that before. You know, on other planets and other times, we came to Earth as an experiment, and we wanted to bring Earth up to that 5D level. And so part of what we encountered coming into 3D was getting into this dark stuff. And we were going to find the path from darkness to light, you know. And I'm realizing, well, we've come to some light. How about from this being the darkness, relatively speaking, to the really bright light that's out there, is that future? And why not? Why not move our probable life track in that direction? You know?
But what if our collective family on planet Earth has got to go through a great change before that can happen?
Well, they are going through a great change. The thing is that there are certain things such as parallel realities, okay? And everybody gets to choose their own. And some people are choosing doom and gloom. And some people are going to choose this beautiful, beautiful optimal future. And other people are going to just choose, you know, blah, blah, mediocre futures. You know, so what future are you going to choose?
Which future do you want to create?
That's right. That's the future I choose.
Right.
Now, I'm going to go in that direction, but I'm not in charge of everybody else making their choice. And those who go doom and gloom, this is going to split off maybe another world, and that'll go in that direction.
Well, what if there wasn't just one parallel reality?
There's
We live in a multi,
yeah,
infinite.
Yeah, and according to Dolores Cannon, you know, is like every time you make a decision, there's probably 3 options. To you know, I'm going to make a decision, and I have option A, B, and C. So which option am I going to take? And that A, B, yeah, okay, I'm going to take option A. But B and C are also now parallel realities. They're also now splitting off.
And who knows if they were already happening already, and it wasn't a split off, but that was just her way of
her way of interpreting that,
Yeah,
but bringing it into our kind of linear mind so we can grasp some of it.
That's right. Throughout this documentary, there's been a lot of information come through on the parallel realities, and we'll ask Galexis that as well. I think we'll get into touching on that. If I was to say to you then, what is channeling to you? How would you summarize that?
Okay, I think at this point, I would say that channeling is it's a flow. It's a flow of energy through me. It's filled with information that is decoded, in a sense, by coming through me. I took a channeling class, which is where I had my first true channel. Because you can be psychic, and you can say, oh, the guides are saying such and such. That's not fully channeling. In the class, I felt this hole open up, and this light come down through this clean, pure white channel, and then it came right out my mouth. It was like the most amazing energy. And I was like, whoa, that just flipped me out, because I wasn't expecting anything that intense. But that's really what it is. It's like there's this channel that comes through, I'm stepped back, and it comes through and goes right out through my mouth. It's translated through my brain and through my languaging and through all my information and all my stuff, which is, of course, you know, a channel's the most limited part of the information, right? But I put it into a kind of a focus stream, and it sends out. And I feel myself just in the midst of this flow. That's kind of what it is for me.
There's many different forms of channeling, would you say?
Well, actually, I probably made a mistake by saying different forms. I would say different, missions, different intentions.
Oh.
Okay? But as far as forms are concerned, it seems to me that there's not that many. It depends on how deep you choose to go as to how it appears or what the form is, as far as I'm seeing it. Because I know a channel who goes completely out, so he doesn't hear who's coming through. And then I know people who are so close to who's coming through, you can't really tell who it is, which it is, okay? Mine, the distinction of mine is the accent, you know?
Yes, absolutely.
And there's also the way that Galexis words things is very often not the way I do. Although I'm starting to word things more and more like Galexis as I do more writing and channeling writing.
Well, because you're becoming one.
That's right.
You're becoming one. Okay, there's some questions I'm going to leave for Galexis, right? Because
that would probably be a good idea.
Yeah. I'm going to, because I think
the really big esoteric things. That would be good.
and I think, you know, people love to see the channeling, don't they?
They do.
They do.
Yeah.
Because it's an eye opener for the potential of what if.
Right, because my mission as a person is different from my mission as a channel. My mission as a channel is to bring this information through to individuals and groups and maybe out to the world and all that. But as myself, I've branded myself this year, or last year, or the year before, or whatever it was, and I'm now the mystic professor. It just so fits all the mystic studies I've done, all the you know, I've done, like, you know, the tarot and astrology, all the divination, all the psychic work, all the medical intuition, all that kind of stuff. So so I have that for me. You know, so, but
I love that, by the way.
Thank you. You know, and I have a Ph.D. too, so it makes it a bit more woo-woo. You know, really sound, because I do have an intellectual bent, right? And then Galexis, the focus for Galexis is to bring all this love and healing through. You know, and so I'm going to bring information through, and they'll bring information, but they bring it on this wave of love and healing. That's why they call the evenings that we did and that are on the website Love and Healing evenings.
So your PhD, just tell us about that.
Well, it's in social and educational change. It's an alternative degree through Walden University, which is a university without walls, but they had focal groups in various places, and I joined one in Miami. And getting a PhD is one hell of a hard work. I mean, I don't understand anybody who can get more than one. I just like, okay, I was so glad that was done, right? But what it does, it changed my identity night and day. As soon as I got that degree, people listened to me. And I was saying just as brilliant things earlier, but it was like, yeah, okay, yeah. Who knows who she is? But with that PhD behind my name, it made that was the difference, was in how people responded to me. And so to a certain extent, I would recommend something like that to anyone. Right now, a lot of people don't have to get PhDs, but they write a really good book or two and get on a whole bunch of talk shows. They can build up their sense of authority that way. But it was a fascinating experience to get a PhD after, and some of my qualifications for getting the PhD, which because I didn't get a master's, was all the notes and all the experiences I had going to, oh my gosh, I mean, must have been 100 different spiritual trainings and metaphysical things, and because that's what trained me.
That's incredible. Well, thank you for sharing that. I just want to go back to childhood as well, just so that we cover that, just so that, you know, we depending what order we put these questions as well.
You like to get to the inner child of every guest, huh?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah, because I want to know what happened. Yeah, and where the programming started. You know, or where it kind of stopped as well. So obviously, I know that growing up for you, it was a very religious family.
Well, my mother, at least,
Yes.
she was the very, very religious, the born again, kind of a missionary type of person.
Why did you choose that family?
Well, because I realized that I was so easygoing. just really easygoing. How would I have gotten on my path if I hadn't enrolled in the kick-ass School of Growth, right? And she kicked my ass. She and I fought over it, and in a sense, it pushed me away from just kind of wandering along. Yeah, okay, and it got me into a place where I found my passion and found my heart.
Oh, so she really helped you enforce that this is real for you, that this is really what I want to get into, the spirituality, because later in your teens, you did go down that direction. Well, had it been la-di-da, let's just go and have a great time, and you know...
I don't know how I would have gotten on, I'm assuming I would have gotten on my spiritual path at some point, but I don't know how that would have happened.
But I could almost fast forward a question and say to you, well, where would your life have been if you had never channeled?
Wow. Okay, that's a very good question. Well, I would still be on my spiritual path because it is my master teacher, Kirpal Singh, who put me on my spiritual path, really. I would still be on that. I would still be in learning and growing metaphysically and spiritually, and I'd still be doing processes and work that I'd learned from Lazarus and other, metaphysical spiritual teachers. So I would still be doing that. But I don't know what I would be doing for a livelihood, because I did burn out of doing astrology and coaching. And so at this point, when they talk about marketing, that always thought about, okay, you get your book out, you get all these programs, and then you can charge a lot for your coaching sessions. And I'm like, I don't want to do any coaching sessions. So I'm not fitting into that particular paradigm. So I'm at this point thinking, well, what do I want to do for me? I got so burnt out that I even only channel Galexis part-time. I don't do full-time anymore, so that on my time, I can write more. So that's what I'm doing.
So at a point you said, when you got to about 20, you said, no, I'm going on my own path now, regardless of what Mum thinks I should be doing.
Right.
Yeah. And I guess you went to the spiritualist church at some...
That really bumped me out of my box.
Yeah.
I got into to all the theosophy and all that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What point was it when you started getting into past life regression and or was it hypnotherapy you got into?
Let's see. I think I started getting into that in the mid-'80s with the transactional analysis. I got into pop psychology, and there was a parent and the child, and you do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that got fascinating. And when I met my current husband, Daniel, he had just taken a hypnotherapy course, and so he'd hypnotize me so that my feet would be warm at night. It helped me sleep, And so I thought, well, this would be good, because you take people through closed-eye processes. This is very close to hypnosis. So I actually, especially when I took the official training in NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, with Richard Bandler, and there are a whole bunch of people there were doing Ericksonian hypnosis and so on. So I kind of got into the hypnosis side. I never studied it officially, but I practiced it and learned it and all sorts of things. And I found that it was really good for me to do like past life regressions, and some of these even included, with my clients, going to other planets and so on. So I began to be aware of how many different places in the universe we've come from.
Absolutely. And to me, that work that you did there, and the astrology as well, it all led to where you are. Had you not done any of those things, maybe the path would not have been so clear.
Well, if I hadn't gotten into the spiritual stuff, I would just ended up being a musician. I already was. I played in the symphony. Back before the standards were so high, I was just an old hack, violin hack, So, but I could have lived out my life doing paintings in the local art guild, and because I was into painting, and playing in the symphony, and just having a regular life.
But what is not spiritual?
But it wasn't spiritual enough.
But what is not spiritual, though? I mean,
Right. Well, that's true. But it wasn't. It wasn't. Let me put it this way. Didn't satisfy my metaphysical curiosity.
Yeah.
I have so much curiosity. I want to know so much. So it's so perfect to have Galexis there bringing in all this information that I don't know yet, so that I can learn it.
And how fitting this is that you sit on this chair that was meant for Galexis to channel, and
yes,
you're there in that chair today.
That's right. We got this years and years ago from an old used furniture shop in Miami.
It's very fitting for this. So, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, and
you're fun to talk with. This is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
when he's awake.
Yes.
you've revived me from the dead.
That's right. You need to tell your viewers that you just come off of a long flight and you were half asleep.
I was half alive. I don't know about that, right? No, and thank you for your hospitality as well. I've really enjoyed speaking to you, and I know we could have gone on for a lot longer as well.
That's right, but you know, we got other stuff to do.
We've got Galexis to come through.
Right.
So just thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we are here. We are Galexis.
Galexis, it's such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for coming through.
You're most welcome.
If you had a message that was something you really wanted to talk about right now, what would that be?
This is a pivotal time. This is a pivotal time for everyone on the planet. And to a great extent, this is the time specifically that you and we and the one who channels us are coalescing our energies, bringing them together to activate the one, to activate the oneness. It's a pivotal time because there's big choices being made right now. Big choices about who you are, who you want to be, what the more you is like, and what future you choose. It's a time of great choices about what is your mission, what is your great work, what did you come here to do, who did you come here to be? And for those of us who are in this consciousness wave going on around the world right now, we are here to wrap up all these births and deaths and all this dance of the physical plane, because we're here on a mission of healing, of love, of light, of lifting the resonance and enabling this grand experiment going on planet Earth at this time. An experiment of consciousness, moving people from 3D consciousness through 4D to 5D and beyond, to seeing who they are, to claiming and owning their divine nature. This wraps up birth and death. This is a culmination. This lifetime right here, for you and for the one who channels us, can be the culminating lifetime. can be the celebratory going home lifetime. We came for this. We came for now. And we came for the years coming. There is great, beautiful work to be done. Much celebration, much love, much joy, much healing. And we came at a particular time so that the chaos, because the world is in so much chaos right now, that this chaos is, or this chaos can be a marvelous leverage to higher consciousness. Because so much of the chaos appears dark. And yes, there is a dark chaos. There's destruction, disentangling, dismantling. There's a lot of destruction going on in this chaos. That's why we call it a dark chaos. But simultaneously, for those of this consciousness wave, it is also a light chaos. Now we want to make mention of chaos real briefly, and that is that chaos is where you see a reality in particles. There's all sorts of particles. And it's your choice as a divine reality creator and co-creator to choose what particles you put together to create a structure, to create a matrix, to create a foundation, to create a reality that you choose. And so this is happening on a global level. There's a collective change going on. Most of us who are participating in the spiritual work and the spiritual teaching and sharing, sending our love and compassion into this world, understanding this chaos because we've done it within ourselves, to bring the collective through that gate that we have come through and we are continuing to go through. So we are, in a sense, leading the consensus, leading the collective. Maybe the collective doesn't really know it quite yet. Maybe it's like the majorette out in front of the band, you know, and there she is, she's prancing, the drum majorette, you know, and then the band, let's say the band makes a right turn, and she's out there marching. No, it's not like that. The consensus is following us because we're the dreamers of the new. We've known this for some years. Some of us have, some people here on the planet have been doing this for decades, working towards this time. Others coming into it very recently. But whatever one's cadence, whatever one's unfoldment, timing, it is all coming together now to move through this chaos. We individually, we personally moving into this new world, into a new life, into a new reality ourselves. This is the year. This is the time. And from that, by holding the resonance, we are creating and co-creating the collective to move with us. This is our mission. We have to come into the dark chaos to move it to the light, through the light chaos to the light future. This is our beloved and wondrous task. And the message about that is, it's all being done through resonance, through many frequencies. We all are made up of many frequencies, but they coalesce into a unified field that has a certain unique resonance from person to person. And in our resonance, as we raise our resonance and we perceive more and learn more and be more, we can dream more, we can imagine more, we can hope more, we can expect more, we can allow more and receive more. And as we do that, the whole consensus, the whole collective lifts with us. The rising tide lifting all ships. but we are the rising tide. You see?
Yes. Yeah, thank you so much for that message. And it also almost makes me want to ask you that when that message comes through like that about ultimately saying that the changing times right now, and that we're going to get through this, and something beautiful awaits us on the other side. Where does that fit into the multidimensional realities?
Okay. The beautiful place on the other side is a multi-dimensional reality. And the thing is that we are, and all people are made up of many dimensions at once. Your level of consciousness is what level of dimensionality you're aware of. Because it is important to be conscious. This is not a time to be unconscious. Of course, you know that. But your conscious awareness, the conscious mind, has been, for the most part, mind-ridden. It has been ridden by cultural ideas and input. And what we are learning, and what all human beings are learning, as we're going through this experiment, because those of us on the other side and those of you on Earth, we're all working on this together. We're all in this project together. What we're learning is that the more dimensions you're consciously aware of, the more power you have to have impact with your love and compassion on the world. Now, when you dream a future, you want to dream the context of the future. You want to dream the functions of the future. You want to dream the various frequencies of the future and how they hold together and work together to build a beautiful, glowing, luminous resonance of love. Now, you can imagine it first by looking at what qualities do you want to have in that future. Now, if you want to have a quality of hope, for example. Now, hope itself has dimensions. There's different levels of hope, different ways of expressing hope, different colors, different themes, different flows of hope. If you want power, there's all sorts of different definitions and usages and applications of power at all different levels of consciousness. So the idea is that when you are looking at multi-dimensional reality, it's basically, that's just reality, okay? When you're talking about your reality, it is multi-dimensional. Yeah, it's like there's octaves and octaves of dimensions. It's similar to just frequency. You know, when you have frequency that's beneath the range of human hearing. But as you raise the frequency octave by octave, eventually you get to sound, you get to color, you get to light. It's all part of frequency range, you see. And so, as a human being, you are living in this whole frequency range. You're only consciously aware of a small part of it. There's only a small part of the spectrum that's visible, right? Now, what you do with consciousness is as you expand your consciousness, it's as if you're taking that little tiny visual spectrum available amongst the whole spectrum, and you're expanding it. You're expanding it, for example, into infrared, ultraviolet. You're expanding your conscious awareness, your perception, right? So all the dimensions are there, but how many of them are you aware of? Yes, you're aware of 3D, length, width, and depth. Yes, you're aware of that. You're aware also of time and space, although you're kind of enclosed in time and space. You're kind of working within time and space in this particular Earth experiment. But just beyond time and space, there is imagination. You see, and there's magic, and there's energy, and there's order, and there's all sorts of marvelous things. They are dimensions. You see, so we all have them. Everyone has them, no matter whether we're on this side or that side or whatever. Everyone has all the dimensions. How many can you be conscious of in your self-image of who you perceive yourself to be?
So we can shift to different realities at any time.
Yes, there are a lot of people who are very consciously aware of many dimensions, and these people are very gifted. They are very magical people. They can shift their focus to one dimension or another and access the gifts and the powers of that particular dimension.
So, okay, yeah, so someone may not be very, on the outside, they may not say that they're, oh, I'm spiritual, or I'm aware I'm a consciousness having a human experience. They may never talk like that, yeah?
That's correct.
But yes, they are using that same principle of, they are shifting between realities because actually they are at a high state of vibration. They are...
Well, we will have to just remind you, you're not shifting realities. You're shifting your focus and your perception from one dimension to another.
But is that the same as your consciousness shifts from one dimension
Well,
to
when
another?
people talk about consciousness shifts, basically they talk about consciousness expansion. Now, when you go into an expanded consciousness,
yes,
it's as if the area, if you could consider your auric field, for example, like your energy field, like a space, okay,
yeah,
like a sphere, a luminous sphere. Okay, when you gain in consciousness, you expand it. Now, what was beyond the boundary of that consciousness before? You've expanded into it. You're in new territory.
Is that the same as going to parallel realities, though?
Well, you see, you exist in a matrix. Now, don't confuse it with the movie, all right? But you exist in a matrix in which you have the dimensions and you have all the choices and possibilities. So the possibilities may, let's just say, to try and put it into a linear context, you got possibilities all spread out wide. You can see over here on the left, for example, are all the darkest possibilities. Mm-hmm. And all over to the right, the most brilliant, amazing, spiritual, high-level possibilities. You've got the whole spectrum in front of you. Mm-hmm. What is your resonance? And by your resonance, by your frequencies, by the combinations, unique combinations of your frequencies that form a unified field of resonance, where in that spectrum of possibilities does your resonance lie?
And where is the energy that's pulling to those
exactly.
resonances?
And where is the call that here is the place, this frequency here, or this frequency over here,
yeah,
this particular option is calling you.
So say let's go to a more positive option, right? Just talk positive
let's
for a minute.
Go to a positive over here.
I mean, if someone wants to choose something negative, that's fine, right? That's up to them. Mm-hmm. But if it's, someone chooses a positive option over there, or whatever that may be, has that positive option been living out its own life already? Is there another version? Is that life lived out already before you choose that positive option? Because you say that you can see it out there. So is it already alive and you're just shifting into that option?
Well, let's put it this way. Since there's no time, you can't say it's already been lived. Every lifetime, every possibility is complete in the now. So it's really choice. You can step in and choose where on some kind of linear framework you'd like to be. But it's all there, complete.
So could you use imagination to tune into that?
That's exactly how you get there. very good.
Thank you. Who knows? I must have channeled that.
Yes. Imagination is really is the key to how far you can stretch your consciousness.
When you go into imagination, then are you really, we call it imagination, but are you just tuning into some other part of you that's untapped, but we call it imagination?
Yeah, you're going to other dimensions of yourself.
Other dimensions.
Yeah, and at other dimensions you have a different array of options.
But we like to call it, when I call it imagination, that's my kind of easy card out to say that's an easy way for me to understand it. But really, as you say, you are tuning in.
The power of imagination is way beyond what most people can even imagine. Okay, imagination is realer than 3D. It's more real. You see, the higher the resonance you get, the higher the dimension you go, the more real it is. Down here in 3D is the most illusion.
Yes.
Okay? So knowing that imagination takes you beyond time-space. You see, imagination is not limited by time-space. You can imagine the future and the past and whatever. Imagination is unlimited there. So when you go to your imagination and allow that imagination to be free.
Well, that would almost say that there's an unlimited number of versions of my soul out there in this same version, in like another Earth, or alternative parallel realities out there. Is that my wanting to call it that?
Well, you know, if you put labels on it, of course it limits it. You know that, right? Because it is beyond, verbalizing. It's beyond words, okay? When you get beyond words, you basically get into the conceptual.
Yes.
And it comes as gestalts. You've had gestalts.
Oh, yes.
Where all of a sudden you just know something.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you sit down and say, okay, I'm going to explain what I just discovered and learned, it may take you 1,000 words, right? But the gestalts are those constructs of energies and lights and whatever that are all those energies that are up in that one spot where you focus.
So if I take the words out and let me rephrase it for those watching this as well, for them to go through this experiment with you.
Yes.
So if we just say that there's all these imaginary options available either side of good and negative of any option you want to take. Yeah?
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could say they're all happening now, right?
Yes, they're happening now. Mm-hmm.
I won't use the word they're parallel realities, but I won't use the word they're looping neither. Let's just say they're, as you've said it there, that they're what you've described, right? Keep it simple.
Let's put it, it's a focal point.
Focal point.
Of choice.
Right, of choice.
Okay.
But that focal point is as real as this.
Well, yes. Yes, and to some extent may even feel more real.
More real.
Now, there are people who have had, maybe you've had lucid dreams.
Very, very few, but yes.
Yeah, in the experience of a lucid dream, even though you're dreaming, you know you're dreaming, right? That's the criterion, in a sense, of a lucid dream, is that, hey, this is a dream, and if you can really own it, you can say, now I can just do anything I want to do, right? So lucid dreaming is kind of like what a person like you or the channel wants to do, and to expand into greater consciousness and the imagine and so on. If you can get to a state of imagining where you realize that your normal everyday consciousness, 3D level life is just part of you,
yes,
and not all of you, then you realize you're more, and you'll realize that you're more real. You'll realize that you have more richness of feeling, of depth, more conscious awareness, more connection to the divine. It's more connected to the divine. That's what makes it more real, right? So you can go there in your imagination and step there and step into that point of choice, that vibrational resonance.
Yes.
And you can step in there, and then you can see that you are greater than the self that you were before you stepped into it.
Sure.
Okay, that's what we call the greater self.
So are you then pulling that version towards you then once you've stepped into it?
Once you step into it, what you want to do is claim it. This is me, my choice. And then you basically start to move into, or there's really no movement, but you start to expand your consciousness in that direction. And this is what all the growth is about, because when you grow, spiritually speaking, or emotionally, mentally, or whatever, but when you grow, you go to some kind of end. You're going in a certain direction. You're choosing to move towards some intention, towards some, you can call it a goal. Goal is very limited, but it's an experience, or you're moving in towards a particular resonance. You make that choice out of your possibilities. And what that will do is that will require that all the energies that are not congruent to that new level must come up to be processed and released.
So, for example, I see I imagine a time when there's no war with North Korea, for example.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right. And lo and behold, right now there is no war with North Korea. There's peace talks at this time. Right now. Mm-hmm. Did I move, and those watching this as well, have we all moved together to a time because we've chosen together or chosen singly to want to be towards that version of reality?
Yes.
Did we leave a reality behind us there where war was a potential?
Yes. And whatever reality that is dependent on war being a reality, whatever emotional aspect in yourself that is attached to war being a reality has to be released. Now, for some people, it might not mean very much because they're not very intensely invested in peace with North Korea. But there are some people who are, wanting to end war on Earth, and they have to imagine what it is to experience worldwide peace and choose that, you see? But the thing is that within yourself, you are a reflection of everything. Everything in your reality is reflecting you. It's like a back and forth. You're in school in a way. You're learning all sorts of things, and this is all very exciting, right? So you're getting this feedback about peace, but if you have internal conflicts within yourself, like an internal war against yourself, where you're judging yourself for something, or you're rebelling against, your inner child is rebelling against your inner parent. No, I will not eat my broccoli, whatever. All of this energy, all the emotional investment in that old energy, the rebellion, the resistance, the agitation, the frustration, all that's got to come out somehow. You've got to release it from your resonance so that you can stay in the higher resonance completely, you see? And that's what triggers growth. That's why people have to deal with, letting pain and suffering go, and healing issues and dealing with relationship issues, and and it works it all through internally so that your internal psychic space is as clear and as bright and as luminous as that space you are choosing and claiming to be. Now, that space that you're choosing and claiming to be, you want to choose something that's beyond where you are now. But know that ultimately it's God, Goddess, all that is. When you get the ability to imagine and dream and step into the divine directly, you've done some heck of a lot of good processes and clearing and healing and letting go. of the darker resonances. That's when every time you get to a new higher resonance and you look at your spectrum from dark to light of possibilities, they're all lighter. Does that make sense? See, that's a process of growth, is that you reach there and then you pull yourself forward and then you find obstacles and resistance and you let them go, and old stuff that would hold you back, and you let all that stuff go and you just keep your focus where it is you choose to be, and then you are there. And that's what you've done for years.
And even right now, even in this conversation, I'm realizing there ain't no such thing as parallel Earths. It ain't that at all.
Well, yeah, it is, but you're never
all.
going to make connection with a parallel life.
No.
But
no.
there's it's in the possibilities.
No, there's something else. It's something else. It's almost like we are creating realities with something else.
Yes, and what is that?
Well, I, up to this point, thought, well, when Dolores Cannon, for example, who I was quite close with, would say that there's other Earths, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that we may be living a bit of a different life on those other Earths.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's that at all. That's not my truth anymore in this moment right now. I think it's something much more. I think this isn't even real to some respects.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
You chose to come to the illusion.
It's all an illusion.
You just decided to come to the illusion because you wanted to bring this Earth experiment. This is an experiment to bring consciousness up from 3D up to 5D, and there's a whole mythology about it. There's whole stories about it on many different levels, from different galaxies, from different star systems, and so on. But if you do look at that, there are infinite realities. One of them could very well be you living on another Earth. Now, you have lived on another planet.
Yes.
And of course that's coexisting right now with you today. And so you could tap in on that. So in that sense, we would say it is, but it's part of it's true. And so it's part of a lineage that you purposely have decided to connect certain dots.
Yeah.
To create a certain line, which we would call your spiritual path and divine mission. Okay? So it's the divine plan, it can be called as well. So you connect all these pieces, and there are mythologies connected with every dot that is connected. There's a whole life and a whole culture, a whole mythology, a whole philosophy, everything is at every one of those dots. But you line them up because you believe in linearity. And you line them up.
Yeah, because you believe in it.
Of course, that's only the way you perceive it is because you believe it.
Doesn't mean it's true.
That's right, because they're all happening simultaneously, and you're one with the divine right now. You're just not consciously aware at this particular point of focus that you've chosen to be.
And I choose to change my focus right now to know that, yes, we can choose that which reality that we wish to choose. But are we just, it's not even walking into that reality. You just become it in a sense.
Yeah, it's like how do you know that you weren't just born 3 seconds ago, complete with history,
memory intact,
and memory and everything?
How would I know that?
How would you know that? You can't. You really don't.
No. And yet my parents would say, yeah, but I know your history, you can't say that. But then who's to say that theirs wasn't created at the same time?
That's right, you just created them 3 seconds ago, right?
So is that going on right now?
Yeah, with everyone. You see, it's way more complex than anybody can really imagine at this point, but that's the way it works. The universe has everything. That's the whole point of it. It's a universe, everything.
So why am I tapping into what seems to be a linear thing where I'll leave here and go in the car, I'll go to a hotel. Right now I've got to do those things, but you're saying actually you didn't do them. They were done
No,
already.
no, you are doing them, but you're doing them in the illusion.
Or thinking
And the
you're doing
illusion
them.
is linear. As you're thinking,
But then
the illusion is linear.
how do I know that when I get to my hotel, I could say, right, 3 seconds ago, up to being 39, it was just implants. In a sense, it was just given to me to give.
Yeah, but how could you prove that? You can't.
Well, how can I prove it? I can't. But
no, you can't.
Because right now,
but it's possible.
Well, I haven't not got there yet.
No, you've already gotten there and come back. No.
Have I?
Oh, a few billion times. Okay.
Well, have we all done this?
Well, you see, when you thought about that, making that example, you thought about going to your hotel. Well, any thought that you have is a whole reality right there. The thing is that what you want to do is you want to find your desire. You want to imagine who you are at your optimal self. And you want to expect that is your truth, your way, because it's filled with heart.
But then
and that makes sense in 3D reality.
If it's filled with heart, as in love, passion, love, the pull, the love. Because whenever I've done anything with love, as in like even manifest this documentary and this show, it's happened.
Well, that's the basic. That's what everything's made of. God is all that is love, and love is God. God is all that is, and everything is God. God is all that is.
But then, if you got me thinking it. If it's got to be done with heart and love, but if something was done with heart and love, or you thought it was done with heart and love, and you manifested it, yet you only just came into existence 3 seconds ago. And everything else was just there, but it wasn't actually real.
Okay, now this is you're just being mind-ridden to ask that question. Because it really has no bearing on your life, truly.
No, because I've still got to get on with it.
But you're curious.
Well, I've still got to get to the hotel.
Yeah, you're still going to get to the hotel, yes. And it's all what you want to think about is, okay, how can I create my life so that it is just a beautiful, magical, divine flow filled with love.
Well, that's what
and
this whole
people.
point was, of this question, right?
That's what you want.
Yes.
Right? And so by focusing on the self that you are, who is receiving that reality, then you bring it into being. And so that's how you manifested the documentary.
But to think that, okay, I'm sat here and I'm going to bring that, I'll think of what I want and I'll bring that to me. Oh, I'm actually, my consciousness is now shifting to another reality where I'm living out somewhere else. That's not what it is.
No,
it's something far greater than that. Mm-hmm. That's a limited person's perspective of it. Oh, that's a
that still is a linear application.
Yeah.
Because you're still looking at time and space parameters.
But we can't have everything, can we? If I was to pick a life and see myself in the International Space Station, there's some things we can't have, I don't think.
No, because you've chosen to come to this one body. Now, when you're in 3D, when you're under time-space, you can't be everywhere. You can't do everything. Until you get beyond time-space, you can't. You're tied to this body for whatever time that you choose to be in the body. Okay. So time-space, you chose to come to time-space. It's part of your destiny. It's part of your mission. That's part of something that you wanted to do.
Right. And that comes with a bit of a limitation of this is where you are right now.
Right. Now, if you want to be an astronaut, okay, then there will be plenty of opportunities at the time that you die. You can say, hey, next life I'd like to be an astronaut, and the astronaut could be an astronaut from the 80s. And let's say you're dying, much later in the 21st century, and it could be from the 1980s. It's not a linear thing.
So I could
you can play around. You could step in, and people who are capable of living beyond time, space, fifth dimension and beyond, are able to be immortal, so to speak. They they could step out of one lifetime into another consciously, complete with memories and so on. That the parallel lifetimes is that, let's say at some point in your life you had a big choice to make and you chose one way, and you always wondered, gee, what would my life be like if I had chosen the other way? Well, yes, you did choose the other way, and that self went off and did whatever and so on in your, we're still using linear languaging here, but so you have all these parallel lives going on simultaneously with you.
Why can't you just tune into them sometimes to get the feeling?
You can through meditation. The channel has done it.
Right, so you get to feel what it will feel like, and you get to know that actually.
You can go and visit the other ones, and if a parallel life that was a very powerful choice point, that other choice that you're not aware of, if you go to that particular life, and that particular life is, let's say, dying, you will feel something, some kind of drag in this life. In fact, the channel went and was feeling really, really gloomy, really having a rough time, and so she, somehow or another, she got the message. We don't know how whether we mentioned it or someone mentioned it, and so she went to find her parallel lifetime, and she found that her parallel was dying of cancer.
Oh.
And was terrified of dying. Was holding on like, oh no, no, I can't die, oh no. And so she went and soothed her and brought in the divine and basically and so on, and resolved stuff so that other self could die. And then when that was over, she stepped back into her regular life and so on, back into the identity of who she was, and all that dark energy was gone.
Why is this? Why is this conversation taking place for this right now? I wonder. What's special?
Well, some of it is part of your curiosity right now.
So why is that helpful to those watching this, do you think?
Okay, well, we like questions like that because we like practical applications of everything. We've been pretty theoretical here.
Yeah, so let's get practical
and conceptual.
about it.
So let's get down into application. The biggest and best application of all we've talked about is to know that who you are is far greater and far more expanded than the little person that you consider yourself to be. Mm-hmm. That's the lesson in this. That's the message. The hint is that you are a divine being, which means that all these realities are yours. And someday you may be conscious of them all.
And can I add something as well? Is that what in this information, what you've just said there, what is the benefits of someone spiritually being more awakened than those never looking into spirituality with that knowledge attached to it as well?
Oh, it's just so much more joy, so much more love to know who you are. That's essentially the urge that every human being really has. Some people just are so busy surviving they can't get to it.
So those who tend to have, we could say on this earthly level, right? I'm just saying this, right? Would seem to have a more successful life, right? Whatever success is to you, right? Mm-hmm. Are they unconsciously applying some of the stuff we've spoken about today?
Yes, there's some really very, very wealthy people who've self-made billionaires and so on, who actually did a tremendous amount of metaphysical manifestation work. They desired, they imagined, they stretched their self-image, they stepped into a greater self-image, the greater self-image of a person for whom that success that they wanted was normal and natural. They expanded their image of themselves, their perception of themselves. And then they received. They allowed what they wanted to come to them.
With the ideas that we spoke about today?
Yeah, they just didn't consciously know about it.
No, that's the difference, isn't it?
Right. And also, some people have, as far as their choice of lifetimes, have lifetimes that are much more successful in the world. The majority of people on the planet, the majority of people on the earth are poor. And there's a lot of struggling to live, to survive, and to make it. And people whose whole lives are wrapped up in working really hard and trying to raise some children who never have free time, who never have an easy life. These people are working on survival level consciousness. And it's important to kind of get it. It's part of what everyone wants. However, you're at a place, for example, that you have the luxury of spiritual questioning, of of following your curiosity, and not only is it part of what you're supposed to be doing, as what you have chosen before you came in, not that someone else gave you this mission, it's yours, but you have the courage to do it. There are probably billions of people who would really like to live a better life. Most everybody on the planet, actually, but poor people who have no options. And they know that if they pick up and they move somewhere, there may be better work somewhere else. But they don't have the courage to do it, and they don't have the wherewithal to mobilize themselves to do it.
But with what we spoke today, for those poor people, could what we've spoken about today help them, or
absolutely.
But then are they at the right spiritual level to hear the information?
Well, some will be and some won't. Everybody has their own cadence, their own choices, their own path, right? And the best that we can do, and all of us working together on this project, you and us, is to lift our resonance, love and heal, have love and compassion, hold the resonance of love, lift, and actually the majority of people are going to be able to lift somewhat, not to the consciousness level of awareness that you have right now, because you're part of the wave, you're part of the consciousness wave that's doing the work to change things. But the people who are not part of that consciousness wave are part of a consciousness wave in some other lifetime. But in this lifetime, they will be lifted. They won't even know you, and they'll still be lifted because of what you are dreaming and imagining, you see? That's why it is imperative for all spiritual people to keep imagining and dreaming and choosing and expanding their consciousness and their perceptions.
Well, hasn't this been a most interesting discussion?
Well, yes, it was not exactly what you would expect,
no.
But here's what happened. We'll have to have another one where we get more into like lower level nitty-gritty maybe, or applications of this and that. But normally when we talk to people who call us for a session, normally we don't, only a few people have the luxury, you might say, to step away from their own issues to satisfy their curiosity about the cosmos, right? So we do answer these kinds of questions to a few people, but the majority are having an issue with their family, or with their money, or with their health, or something. So so we generally tend to focus on practical steps to build to that next level of expansion of consciousness, and that's our work, you see.
Well, I hope you've grown from our conversation, and I hope we've grown from your conversation.
Sounds like a very good intention.
Thank you.
All right. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and we wish you absolutely the best for your beautiful mission.
Oh, thank you very much, and I'm sure that this was destined to be. So thank you.
Of course, yes. All right. We surround you with light and love, dear one, and we're going to leave now. Farewell.
Farewell.